Alright, it's patch notes o'clock, and there's a lot of good things to talk about, especially for barbarians, but we'll start with all classes. Pain Gorger's Gauntlets. A unique set of gloves that I'm not sure we'll see used just because, there's a lot of good stats in gloves, such as attack speed and crit, and if it does not have those naturally, this might not even make it. Damaging enemies with a cast non-basic skill marks them for 50 seconds. When a basic skill first hits an marked enemy, the basic skill's damage is echoed through all marked enemies, dealing 100 to 200% increased damage. Now that is very interesting, especially me with my, frenzy brain. But my main concern here is the mark. It lasts for 30 seconds. Great. Non-basic skill. Great. We can use that with charge with the barbarian, which we'll get to in a minute. But does it get rid of the mark, or do you keep whacking away at it? And it's not, does it deal that extra 200% increased damage to the main guy, or is it only to everybody else? Because if it's to the main guy as well, we have a very nasty set of gloves for Arclash Sorcerer and for Frenzy. New aspect of adaptability. When cast below 50% maximum resource, basic skills generate 3 of your primary resource once per cast. Fair enough. When cast at or above 50% maximum resource, basic skills deal an increased 40 to 80% increased damage. So these two are already a combo, and I see some nasty things happening for an Arclash build. I know it's a bit of an obsession for me, but I like the idea of not thinking too much. And the thing is, damaging enemies with a cast non-basic skill marks them for 3 seconds. It's non-basic? The lightning spear counts because it doesn't have to be core. I wonder if fire shield counts. Fire shield does generate damage when you hug people with it, so maybe there's a use for that insane 4 skill or 3 skill build that just focuses on cooling down your fire shield forever, but we'll see. Juggernaut's aspect gives you up to 1.25% armor, but your evade has increased 100% cooldown. So you just have it. That's great, right? You just have bonus armor. I think it's a number. If it's not a percentage, I don't think it works like the thing everybody likes, disobedience, because it's a flat number. But we'll see how big that number gets. It'll be interesting to have an alternative to disobedience, and one that is active all the time without having to rely on damage being dealt, which I guess is a small thing all in all, but it's an additional defensive thing. There have been times where I've been looking at builds and thinking that I do need another defensive option. So a few of the uber uniques have been changed. Starless Skies, for example. Spending resources now reduces your resource costs, all of them apparently, and increases your damage by times 10% for 30 seconds up to 40%. So every time you spend a resource, you start hurting more instead of casting a core skill reducing the cost. This one just increases damage and reduces. Oh no, it increases damage up to 40% and reduces resource costs up to 40%. So this can get very nasty as a ring, especially since it has a damage buff and it implies it's multiplicative. This is a thing, the offensive aspect, the expectant being changed to having a duration. A lot of skills and aspects now have a duration, so you can't just bank them and use other skills and molly wallop the big boss or a big target with a saved up buff. So that's a weird call, but I'm here for it. Now the Melted Heart of Selig, which apparently was a big thing for higher tier play, which I just never found a Melted Heart of Selig, so I never really got to play with it too much, if at all. All stats increased to twice the normal value, which is about in line with a lot of uniques. Core skill damage changed to movement speed, so it's no longer a damage bonus, which is fine. The movement speed is... A lot of people have started removing movement speed on the amulet and started seeing it as a useless... Well, not useless, I guess, but suboptimal affix. But if it's there, it's there, I guess. Damage while healthy increased to 3 times the normal value. Now that's interesting, because it's trying to make the point of it to give you a shield that lets you stay healthy so that you can take advantage of the buff rather than something you can use to become functionally invulnerable, which is why the unique power was changed. You gain 60 maximum resource, great for a lot of builds, by the way. But instead of removing or preventing all damage, instead, it prevents 75% of damage, and then it drains resource for every percent of life you would have lost instead. So you're still taking damage to your life. Time will tell whether it's worth it. Overpower, more importantly, has been changed dramatically. Overpowered attacks now gain +1 damage, down from You know what? It's the same sentence both times. It basically says overpower bonus damage is now halved. So instead of like 300 million damage, you will now deal 150 million damage, which, mind you, is still way too high, even at higher play. So I don't know if this is really what we're looking for. I think that's the calculation. We'll see. But I'm pretty sure Hota is still going to be, king. Ren got a new unique ring now that we hit the Barbarian area. Ren's duration is increased by 4 seconds. Damaging enemies with brawling skills applies 2 stacks of Ren's bleed. This effect can only occur once every 4 seconds per enemy. Who cares? That's amazing because, charge just got changed up. And charge is kind of wild right now. Now, the question is, Ren's bleed. Is it going to be based on the damage of your Ren skill, or is it going to be based on the damage of the skill that applies Ren's duration? It's probably going to be based on Ren, but still, something to consider. Aspect of Sundered Ground, offensive. Finally, Upheaval. Upheaval gets the respect it deserves and gets a aspect. Every 25 seconds, Upheaval is guaranteed to overpower. Great. Deals 20% increased damage. Great. The time is reduced by 4 seconds when Upheaval overpowers a boss or an elite enemy. That's cool. That's actually pretty cool, especially if you meet a pack of elite enemies. I assume there's no cooldown for that, so wham bam, thank you ma'am. We're going to keep overpowering every 10 or so seconds. Unfortunately, we no longer have the vampiric power that allows us to overpower every, I believe it was 20 seconds, but we are. Well, I don't think we're getting a new overpower ability on our pet Seneschal, but we still have everything else that lets us overpower, such as the Earth Striker aspect and the overpower legendary node in the Barbarian lane. Let's see, charge. Base damage increased by 900%. Now, I'm a huge fan of charge, but this is such a bizarre change to me. Like, there's no patch notes for this. Like, what was the thinking? We're increasing it from 0.25 modifier to 2.5 modifier of your weapons damage. Enhanced charge terrain impact increased by 150%, and power charge no longer requires terrain impact to reduce the cooldown of charge, and now charging a boss will reduce the cooldown by 6 seconds. Now, all of you brawler bros and brodettes and everything in between and everyone in between know that I'm ready for this, etc. Because we have brawler builds, and now the question remains, how do we weave it into the thing? And if you're into your attack cycle, and if you're wondering how to do that, and you're thinking of that aspect that increases it to 300%, so are they, because that got nerfed into high hell. Leap base damage increased by 30%. That's great, sure. Overpower decreased to 8% per rank instead of 15. Fair enough for brute force passive. Walking Arsenal gets a massive buff. Now it's longer. Now it does more damage, and it increases your attack speed. So we can get some very interesting frenzy builds out of this. Unconstrained berserking damage increases now to 100%. No longer do we need to do 60% math. Gushing wounds is still on the fence for me. Rend is very good, but it has been nerfed. I think Rend still looks at the base damage you deal rather than any modified damage like a critical strike, so it's never going to be quite that amazing. But the bonus bleed is okay, and the overpower explosion damage is, I guess, that exists. Weapon expertise leveling has been cut by 50%. I don't know if that means it'll take longer to max out your weapon, which would suck, or it will take like half the time. Who knows? The wording is very strange. The Paragon. Now, the martial glyph, it also feeds into the nonsense that charge is going to be, because now instead of playing with the reducing shout skills, it now reduces the cooldown of every non-shout skill. So you can charge people and shout at them, and you get 4 seconds off it, possibly a whole 10 ass seconds out of charge cooldown just because you put on a glyph and you hit a boss. Item updates, resource aspect of Echoing Fury. This is one of the best updates there. Like, on a max roll on old Echoing Fury, for each shout you'd get 4 to a maximum of 12 Fury per second. Now the max roll is 10, 2 less than the max roll, but that's fine. It's like closer to the average of what you'd actually get, like a 9. It's a bit higher than the average than what you get actually. on a roll, but you only need one shout to activate it, which is great. The thing is, there is that passive. I don't know if they're going to change it. It's not here, so they didn't change it. There is the Warcry passive. Not the Warcry passive. I think the Raid Leader passive, the one that gives you 3%, 1% of your life per second while a shout is active. I believe that's still per shout. So that's not fantastic because it's still incentivizing me to do 3 shouts just for the healing. And just for the healing is like a really weird way to phrase it, right? Because healing is kind of important, especially if we go insane and try to use an overpower build still, although it's probably still going to be the way. But the fact that upheaval has an aspect gives me some hope that it might be more usable. But the nodes, man, the nodes between the two skills are just too different. Well, the offensive rage, limitless rage, now has a 5-second duration to be used, which again, fine, but this can get iffy in lower density areas, which not often, especially in like abattoirs. Like, it's fine. But I don't like what I have to think about that timing now, but I probably won't anyway. Veteran Brawler's aspect, that's the one I was talking about, the one that increases our brawling damage, our kick or our charge. It no longer stacks up to 300%, it instead stacks up to 40%. Womp womp. But we did get a 900% bonus, so maybe it's still better right now. The Ancestral Charge benefit, the one that gives you extra charging people and increases the charge of the damage of your charge, is now capped out at 30%. Still fine considering we have a 900% increase. Offensive aspect of Encroaching Wrath, I believe that's the one that lets you hit with your weapon mastery skills harder. Again, another 5-second duration. That's so weird. It's like maybe something is going to happen within those 5 seconds. Like, say, the spawning of an abattoir boss, right? Or the spawning of a vault boss. I haven't seen the vaults yet, but it feels like there's intention here. Same for the ring that was released last season, the Ring of Red Fury. So I'm very suspicious about this. Onto the Druid. I didn't play this last season, but I think we can just look at the numbers to get a good idea of it. Unsung Ascetic Wraps. That's its new unique. It's Party Gloves as well. Lightning Storm gains additional one additional strike each time it grows. Lightning Storm critical strikes cause Lightning Strike to strike twice rather, dealing 10 to 20% increased damage. This seems really good for a Lightning Storm build. If it weren't a channeled ability, I'd probably love it more. But you know, it's pretty good for farming a specific area or like horde modes. Or, you know, having a Seneschal that's built to tank. That could be interesting. A Virulent Aspect. We got a new one. When rabies infects an enemies, reduce its cooldown by 0.3 to 0.6 seconds. This cooldown reduction is tripled when infecting elites. Alright, I never got a lot of experience with the rabies build, but maybe I will now. Because enhanced rabies now has increased damage to 60%. Lacerate's cooldown has been reduced to 35%. Prime Lacerate. Condition of Lacerate hits heal for 3% of maximum life, increased to 6% in critical strikes. I think that's the attack a bunch of times ability. I'm not sure. Just general like increase in numbers for them. Nothing as crazy as a charge though. And longer vulnerability for Spring Cataclysm, but I don't know how valuable that's going to be considering we have a Seneschal ability that applies vulnerable now. Hey, Mending. Additionally, healing increased to 6. Sure. Fortify increased to 10% per rank. Kind of amazing. That's 10% of your max life, I assume. Unrestrained. Control impairing effect duration increased from 3 to 5% per rank. Generally just increased value. Except this. Now it's just up. Fortify gain shapeshifting increased to 2%. Required shapeshift duration reduced to 2 seconds. Attack speed bonus increased to 30% on Bestial Rampage. And Florence has been increased to like 0.6 from 0.115, so that's like a times 4. So now Razor Plate, my beloved, may have a new home. Gift of a Stag, extra spirit, big, I guess. Avian Wrath, critical strike damage bonus is now multiplicative instead of additive. Huge deal for any critical strike build, such as the Lightning Storm that we saw right above there. Tectonic, bonus lucky hit chance increased from to 20%. Poise, barrier increased to 15%. And duration increased to 6 seconds. Good stuff. Very defensively minded. Passive companion damage increased from 80 to 120%. Aspect of Blurred Beast. I do remember this one. The seeking damage. So this one looks for poison enemies. Now, instead, it seeks out nearby poison enemies and deals 20 to 40% increased damage to them rather than dealing the poisoning damage to them. So poison here in that build now becomes a secondary rather than a primary, a off source of damage. That's still good. Boulder is now cheaper. I never got to try the Boulder Spinny build, but maybe next season. Spirit Generation for Aspect to Unsatiated. Bonus damage increased to 30 to 40%. And Aspect of Retaliation. Bonus damage reduced from 20 to 40 to 20 to 30. I guess it's just a smaller range. Okay, onto the Necromancer. We got a new thing, a Mutilator Plate. I actually really like the Bloodlance build from last season. So I'm a little excited for this. You are Bloodlanced, and when Bloodlance would damage you, instead fortifies you for up to 2% of your maximum life and has a 5% chance to form a Blood Orb. Bloodlance deals increased damage, up to 20% multiplicative. So one of the most important things about this to me is that there's a chest piece with, natural increased damage. You can get that. There is a role for that for increased shadow damage or increased element damage on your chest. But in fact, that it's on a unique that also gives me a blood orb that could probably heal me or even shoot out more blood lances depending on what's happening is pretty cool. A Shattered Spirit's aspect. Casting Bone Spirit launches 18 bone splinters in all directions, dealing increased damage and generating 6 energy for it. Now that's interesting because Bone Spirit, for those of you who haven't used it, eats up all your essence to shoot a big ball at them. Well, one single Bone Spirit would just whacks people, and then it hurts depending on how much essence you had when it was cast. Not sure if this is going to make it viable, but maybe in a leveling sense. Or like in a very, very niche place in a group. Iron Maiden now deals more damage. It's still nothing. Hard Iron. Okay, the bones damage might be something. Here's an important one. A lot of the passive shadow-based lucky hit chances we have, the damage over time from the for the Necromancer, a lot of them has been reduced. Like, yes, a lot of this is different. Like, oh no, damage decreased, base damage increased. The decrease from 40% to 25% is massive. Because it's like you multiply and multiply, so that's actually a really small number. I believe it's like if there's a 10% chance to proc a lucky hit thing, you actually get 2.5% chance to proc it with 25% chance to hit. That's like dirty math. That's not even accurate math, but like that's the range we're thinking of when that reduction happens. This also means that lucky hit bonuses no longer give as much value to Necromancer builds. So I expect a few, things to change a little, especially our Lidless Wall builds. Let's see if that got hit actually. Let's see, Blight damage over time increased to 95%. Sever, 75%. Sever got a little better, I guess. Bone Spirit. Damage is increased by 4% per essence spent casting Bone Spirit, up from 50%, so it hits a bit harder. It also restores 30% of our maximum essence instead of 30 essence. Now it might be usable. It might be a little spammable if you can find a way to gain resource quickly. Acolytes Decompose. It's an at-will. Initiates Decompose, another at-will benefit. Dreadful Blood Mist. It's used to fortify you. Now you gain 10% critical strike chance for 4 seconds after Blood Mist ends. It's just funny because this isn't much of a buff. To any other class, gaining plus 10 critical strike chance is great, but this is the class that can easily get over 100% crit chance for fun. And that's like not even optimizing it, that's just having the right things on you. But not even maxed out. Bone Prison. Friendly players and minions can now freely pass through Bone Prison. Yay! The functionality of Enhanced Bone Prison and Ghastly Bone Prison have been swapped. Okay. Enhanced Bone Prison. Enemies inside a Bone Prison are vulnerable. Ghastly. If an enemy is trapped by a Bone Prison, gain 25 essence plus an additional 25 per... Okay, fine. Now it no longer fortifies you. Fair enough. Now it reduces your active cooldowns by 2.5 seconds for each enemy trapped by Bone Prison up to 50 seconds. Not bad. I don't think... It might find room now that our lucky hit chance procs are kind of lower, but it's still priority fine. Ossified Essence now displays the current bonus in tooltip. Great. We got a lot of Golem buffs too. When golems finish casting their active ability, they will first try to target a new close enemy before reverting to their previous target. I don't know how to feel about that, but cool. Blood Golem, Iron Golem. Basic attacks now hit in an area. Jesus, they didn't? It's terrible. Bone Golem. Active ability now grants the Golem thorns equal to 70% of your armor for the duration of the taunt. Hooray. Razor Plate. My beloved. Plus armor. Bone Mage. Upgrade now fortify based on your maximum life instead of... Okay, great. Healing increased to 40% over the... Yeah, okay, great. Okay, Cult Leader has been changed from increasing by up to 45% for each minion type you have active. Maybe is Golem count as a minion? Probably. Your minions deal 10% increased damage for each 20% of attack speed bonus they have. So the faster your minions attack, the harder we hit. This might be worth it. This also allows us like half-seas builds. Like if we just want Skelly Mages or just Skeleton Warriors, that's fine. Instead of having to fully commit to all minions just to get the maximum value. Now we just need to keep stacking attack speed on them and we can go crazy. Golem, additional bonus, change from 25% health to 25% damage. Nice. I mean, the health was nice too, but it was never surviving sometimes. It was just killing things. That was the problem for minions. Especially since I feel like we do need these massive attacks, damage bonuses, because they don't focus their attacks. They need to deal with their target. Like the fewer things there are in the field, the worse they deal. Except maybe for skeleton mages, and because they have Blizzard and like Shadow Blight or something, and technically that's still you, not them. But the more damage you do, the safer, the more effective they'll be. Which is funny because they're most effective in the worst situation when going for a dungeon. I can't find that many enemies. But I digress. Item updates. Aspect of Swelling Curse. Bone Spirit's critical strike chance is increased by 25%. Your maximum essence is increased by 2 for each enemy hit for 15 seconds. So now it scales. Now it's a little tempting, but the last time I built a Bone Spirit build, it never even made it to the channel. I just like, oh my god, I've wasted my time. And I gotta go do something else. But there might be something to this, especially with the Seneschal and especially with minions doing a bit more damage. So we can use it as burst and use the minions to clean up other stuff, but we'll see. Treacherous Aspect. Iron Maiden is now also a darkness skill and deals shadow damage. Enemies affected by Iron Maiden have a 15 to 25% chance to be stunned for 1 second when they deal direct damage. Huh. I didn't even know Iron Maiden dealt... I guess when they attack, it deals, like, shadow damage now. Okay, interesting. It's CC. And there is that thing that if you have both Iron Maiden and Decrepify on one dude, you deal 50% extra shadow damage to him. So it could stack up, but testing is what will show that. Rotting Aspect, chance to spawn additional corpses increased to 100%. Okay. If you're using that, I don't think I've ever said the words Rotting Aspect before. Hulking Aspect, chance to reduce and Golem's active cooldown increased from 2 to 5% to 4 to 10%. Wow! Chance to spawn a corpse increased to 5%. Up from 2.5% max. Wow. Not exciting numbers. They're better numbers. Nobody's saying that they're not better. But I find it hard to be excited about that. Alright, down to Rogue. Beastfall Boots. When you cast an ultimate skill, your next core skill consumes all of your energy and deals increased damage per energy consumed. Using a cooldown restores 5 energy. See, okay, that's cool. Great. Wonderful. But the fact that we got a mini prodigy on our fudging boots? What is this madness? Why do we get this? Why do rogues get this? I know, but they don't have the best energy like generation, but now they have a prodigy on their boots. This is one of the very rare, if not the only, I'm not sure actually, only item that isn't on a ring that can generate you resource. Right? Maybe rogues need to have. I also did not play a lot of rogue last season. I was planning on it, but like the season was almost over and like, let's just focus on what I have now. I don't know how to feel about that. Resistant Assailant's Aspect, defensive. Breaking Concealment grants 10% resistance and maximum resist to all elements for 4 seconds. Critting an elite enemy reduces concealment's cooldown by 6 to 10 seconds. This part, yeah. Sure. But killing an enemy reducing concealment's cooldown for 6 to 10 seconds. Oh, it has to be an elite. I guess that's fine. It's good against Abattoir. It's not great against bosses. because there's rarely any elites to kill in those fights. Blade Shift deals more damage. Duration increased to 4 seconds. It's just better now, but I wouldn't say it's, better than the free knives thing. Fundamental Invigorating Strike. Vulnerable now applies while you're below 85%, up from 75% energy, so most of the time you are going to apply Vulnerable with it. Enhanced Caltrops. Enemies in Caltrops take 10% increased damage from you, increased by 5% each second. There's no cap on this. And there's that pants that just lets you spit out traps. And there's an aspect that makes Caltrops a trap. I think. It's been a while since I looked at them, so that can get pretty nutty. Especially in a boss. Just have them sit in a pile of Caltrops and ruin their lives. Rain of Arrows, this is very much welcome. Which, by the way, is the main problem with Upheaval. I don't think you can get past the initial dig into ground before they flip. Before they throw the attack out. Anyway, cast time reduced by 15 seconds. It did feel a little sluggish. The first wave of players now hits closer to the enemy player. Cool. Chill amount increases by 5% up to skill rank, up from 2.5%. So you chill more when you Cold Imbue, which is fine because you get 2 uses out of it. Blended Cold Imbuement removed the critical strike requirement, increased the lucky hit chance from 20 to 35%. I've forgotten what it does, but I guess that's better. Mixed Poison Imbuement. Poison imbued skills have a 30% chance to reduce poison imbuement's cooldown by 2 seconds. Yeah, that's a clear difference now because the other third node for poison is based on crit rather than a lucky hit to increase damage or something, if I remember correctly. Now, this is clearly different from that. Like, instead of dealing more damage, you get to use poison more. Could be interesting. Forceful Arrow, vulnerable duration increased to 5 seconds. Enhanced Penetrating Shot. Penetrating Shot has a 10% increased critical strike chance. If Penetrating Shot damages at least 3 enemies, gain 10 critical strike chance for 5 seconds. Okay, that's fine. Good against mobs. Very good against mobs. Improved Penetrating Shot deals 10% increased damage per enemy it hits. What does that mean? Right? Or do they mix the sentences? Because the previous one is, if Penetrating Shot damages at least 3 enemies, your next Penetrating Shot has 20% increased critical strike chance. So this just deals extra damage instead of gaining the critical strike chance, or does it like keep dealing more damage as it goes down the line? This is very weird. This is very poor wording. Close quarters combat has been... I don't know. Amount of damage versus crowd-controlled enemies. Conversion percent reduced from 40 to... Okay. So that's a nerf, but it attacks faster. Precision. Oh my god. Words. I mean, okay. Each marksman skill casts 1 stack of precision. Or 2 if it is critically struck. When you reach 6 stacks, your marksman core or ultimate skill is a guaranteed crit with increased critical strike damage, consuming all stacks of precision. This damage is further increased by an amount equal to your 15% critical strike bonus. So you don't stack up critical strike anymore. That's all it's saying to me. Like, you don't stack up critical strike damage. Fine. Chilling away. Chilled enemies have their movement speed further reduced by 30%. Now it is... Chilled enemies have their movement speed further reduced, and you gain increased chill effect. Fair enough. Concussive used to be my favorite knockdown ability. No longer, it's a general buff. It no longer applies the critical strike chance to the guy you knock down, but it just increases your critical strike chance. Period. Straight up against anybody. The Arena's Instinct, I don't think it's gonna get used still. Maybe, like when Enter Sight's gauge becomes clear to full, you gain 100% dodge chance for 2 seconds. Cool. Your next 3 skills deal additional damage equal to 20% of your core skill damage bonus. I don't know about that one. It certainly exists. I mean, it's more damage. Next 3 core skills. I'm trying to remember if we really did like enormous damage in one play without abusing the bug, of course, last season. I'm wondering if that's truly a good thing. We don't have like a Hota. We don't have something that focuses all of our power into one hit. It's like death by 1,000 cuts, not death by one big hammer. Anyway, the Blade Dancer's aspect finally got nerfed in a weird way. The orbiting blades now can hit each enemy 2 times, reduced them for the first or second developer note, aside from the one at the very start, by the way. Because it looks right. They only hit each enemy twice. If I have been hitting enemies thrice, this is a 33% damage reduction or potential damage reduction? Like a 30% nerf. That's what it says, right? Or am I crazy? I might be crazy. Twisting Blades now orbit for a short time, dealing 30% of increased damage. I don't know if they removed this part. Because it only changes the second sentence, right? It no longer is based on the distance. It's just a flat increase in damage, which is easier because now we don't have to play too hard with our positioning. Although that was kind of fun. So assuming this still works, I don't know. They made a note and then continue not making great notes for the others. Anyway, each stack of momentum key passive heals you for. Oh, I do like momentum. Heals you for up to 0.8 life per second. Now each stack of momentum gives you the same and damage reduction. Very much good. Much good. Not great English for me. Icy Alchemist. New. Lucky hit. Shadow imbued skills. Have up to a 75%. That's why I'm not really gonna make any builds based around this. I don't know how much of this is a typo. 75% chance to release an explosion that deals up to 0.48 cold damage to the target and surrounding enemies, chilling them for 25%. If they were already chilled or frozen, increase this damage by 100%. I do like this. Wait, it no longer requires like a mix. Like you no longer have to hit a chilled or frozen enemy. The chilled or frozen parts increase. So it's a general increase in. I mean, it's still optimal to use them together, but this one now is like it now works by itself, which is a little disappointing. It makes it better certainly, but it's a little disappointing in that before it was like a combo ability, and now it's still a combo ability, but it feels less so. You know what I mean? Toxic Alchemist. Shadow-imbued skills have to a 75% chance to create a toxic explosion that applies point-free poisoning damage over 5 seconds to the target and surrounding enemies. If the enemy was already poisoned, increases damage by 100%. So that's the Shadow and Poison combo. Wind Force now has its lucky hit chance increased to 40%. Yay. Sky Hunter. We finally got that critical strike damage. Nice. Critical strike damage affix increased by 100%. Cool. Effect updated to changes to precision key passive, so it now just matches it. The first direct damage you deal to an enemy is guaranteed critical strike. When you consume precision casting a skill, that skill gains 30% increased critical strike damage and gain 40 energy. I mean, it's been a while. I don't know how good these have been in the last season, but my meta is not really. Eagle Horn. Penetrating shot makes enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds. Fantastic. I no longer have to bounce it backwards to make it work. Every fourth cast bounces off walls and scenery and deals 40% increased damage. Okay, that's interesting. Like spamming penetrating shot is now like a viable strat because you need to get to that fourth cast. That's interesting. All right, up to the Sorcerer. We got a new Starfall Coronet, which I assume is a helmet? It could be a source. Meteor now has 2 charges and an 11 to 6 second charge cooldown instead of a mana cost, and drops 3 additional meteors around the target. Meteor's enchantment effect and enhanced meteor drop 1 additional meteor. It's sold. Kind of. I mean, this is very Diablo 3 design for the meteor, but I'm here for it. 2 charges. Extreme cooldown reduction or anything that reduces our cooldown so we can get something nasty out of it. Aspect of Shredding Blades. Ice Blades chance to apply vulnerables increased by 20% and the vulnerable duration is increased by 4 seconds. You gain extra vulnerable damage. Very nice, I think. The fact that it's easier for Ice Blades to apply vulnerable. Yeah, sold. Sold. Okay. Enhanced Ball Lightning changed to have its attack rate increase with attack speed up to 25%. So that's a nerf. I don't know, actually. You know what? I don't know what the math will end up being. Because now it's not your attack speed bonus, now it's your attack speed period, so maybe it'll even out, but it is capped at 25% and not 200%, so it's not going to be anywhere near as nutty as it used to be. Mage's Blizzard, condition to be cast while over 50 mana, has been removed, so it's just 8 seconds long now. Great. Critical strikes now apply vulnerable for 30 seconds. I assume they removed the stun. This is really unclear. These patch notes are getting worse written the deeper we get into it. Come on now. I mean, I know since launch it hasn't been great for anybody at Blizzard working on Diablo 4, but come on. Right, Paragons. Not a lot of changes for this arc. Just nerfing ball lightning, so it's Arc Lash, baby. Searing Heat fixed an issue while the critical strike chance bonus was not properly applying. Critical strike chance bonus increased from 10 to 12%. Weird number, but cool. Elemental Summoner. Conjuration damage bonus increased to ×5 with the total amount of bonus damage at Fire Lightning Cold. Cool. Burning Instinct. Amount of intelligence required to gain 1% bonus burning damage reduced from 75 to 25. Excellent. That actually is kind of a huge buff to the burning builds, which I feel you, man. I wish they'd give Incinerate love. Or should Disintegrate. Whatever. Item updates. Offensive aspect of Shattered Stars. Meteor damage has been changed to be 30% of the casted meteor's damage. Fine, great. Instead of like a different number, which means we don't have to rely on finding a whatchamacallit, an ancient aspect of it. Like whatever the third tier is. It's been a while. Ancient? Sacred, ancient, whatever. The newest one for to get value out of it. Staff of Nam Essen, increased chargeable chance to be attracted to enemies from 30 to 50 to 40 to 60. It's so weird, but it's a chance for the ability to be consistent. I guess that's the power of it, but it's not like the numbers in chargeable are crazy to begin with. Still a good build. I had a bit of fun with it. I don't think I made that video, but I had a bit of fun with it. Ice Heart Brace. Chance to unleash a Frost Nova when enemies die increased to 30%. I'm sure there's a build somewhere for it. With Ball Lightning on, people might go harder on the CC side of things, which is great for me. Helltide's now being active, by the way. It's not just class changes. We also have these changes. Helltides will now be active every hour on the hour with a 5-minute gap in between. Helltides will be active 55 minutes of every hour. That's actually fantastic for me. Now I don't have to wait I gotta wait another hour just to do some farming. Now I can farm consistently. There's still fear, the thing you get from Nightmare Dungeons to go into an Uber boss. Now is acquired more consistently. Fantastic. Before you just had to gamble, and it didn't even show up on the ground or on the reward screens. Just like you gotta check your inventory for it, which is kind of nutty. The Purified Sigil reward for completing a Nightmare Dungeon will now always grant a Sigil 1 to do. Huh? What's a Purified Sigil? It has been a while. Scrolls of Escape. That's probably a hardcore thing. The chance for Scattered Prisons to drop when defeating an elite monster has been reduced. Excuse me? Scattered Prisons can now be acquired from Legion events. Material cap has been increased to 999,999. Treasure Goblins spawned while fighting Avarice now have the same loot potential as normally encountered loot goblins. Come on, that did not have to be I digress. Weekly caches now drop unique items. Fantastic. From world bosses, I mean. The increased cap for item power on item bosses has been adjusted. Now there's a weird thing here. At high level players will see maximum. Yeah, the item ranges have been what you can get have been changed. Now, Duriel is the most consistent one, but now you can get more. Now you can get whatchamacallit. Where is that? Nightmare Dungeon item power scale has been adjusted to more consistently drop high item power loot in high tier Nightmare Dungeons. Like if we go into 125, which is you know what? I don't know. Maybe tier 50. I'm not sure. It's above. Oh, there it is. All monsters above level a tier Nightmare Dungeon tier 90 plus and above are now guaranteed to drop 925 item power gear, which makes farming so much easier because nothing is more disappointing but getting a perfect roll and then it being just 1 or 5 off of max level, because it makes a tiny bit of difference and it'll hurt. And it'll also just be stuck in the back of my head. Like, I could have had this in max, and then I don't. But now, we just need to level up and hit Nightmare tier 90s and, start farming there. Potion count will no longer be reset after dying. Cool. The Hatred's Chosen Siphon effect is no longer based on lucky hit. Excuse me? The Greed Shrine effect will now drop additional gold. Cool. Oh, now it's like a massacre effect. Uber item uniques can now be unlocked as transmogs. I guess. I didn't even know we had different icons in the game, like when you're using them. There's so much like stuff happening on screen. Generally good stuff. Like changed. Not the most interesting things for me. And there's a bunch of gameplay stuff here, but it's just like it's bug fixes. Not really interested in that. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the rambling. I'm very excited to try a lot of things, but mostly the Barbarian charge because I feel seen. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell. I am Patinator. I'll see you later.